All right, Jordan, it's time for your annual review. As you probably recall, you've been tardy 3 times by my recollection. And as you know, here at the Old Time Podcast Hour, we have a system, a 3-strike system. First, you get an unspoken write-up. After 3 unspoken write-ups, you get an implied reprimand. And after 5 implied reprimands, you get sanctioned for a spanking.
Okay, I'm glad you told me this now, because,
But in all seriousness, you brought this show back to life. So, credit to you for stepping in there and becoming the co-host.
Thank you, I'm honored. I mean, you were the one who brought me on, so.
You told me that you listened to the show. I was like, hey, I can give this guy a chance to host a show, and that'll work as the example that I'm trying to bring people on, that I'm open to other people hosting episodes, and it'll probably suck, but it'll sort of set this precedent, get the ball rolling. Next thing you know, you come back to me with a killer episode, and then another one, and it was like I was listening to somebody emulating my style.
That's hilarious.
You knew what you were doing right off the bat.
I'm honored.
So, good job, dude.
Thank you.
This is the Old Time Podcast Hour with people of Liberty University. Mark Maron, you don't know who that is?
Mark Merle?
Mark Maron, he's like the patriarch of podcasting.
I don't know.
Ooh, how about the Alex Jones podcast?
Did you listen to it?
Alex Jones? That was nuts.
4 hours.
They're vampire zombies, bats, coming in from the 4th dimension. They're wanting to eat our babies and kill us all.
Hey, choke me out. I'm not even kidding. Eddie, choke me out. We used to do this all the time.
Yeah.
Choke me out right now.
Remember when he got mad
What
at
shall
him
I do,
too.
Lord?
I'll be unconscious.
Destroy the children.
Like,
Corrupt the
They're
world.
killing babies! Sorry for blowing your drums out.
We're gonna
If
get
this-
kicked
if this
out.
makes it. They could probably hear us in the deep quiet.
Yeah, they can't. No, I
Turn
mean,
the frogs gay. They're putting chemicals in the water. They're turning the frogs gay.
I still have my fanny pack holding my pants up, my shorts up. I
Oh,
need to
nice.
loosen this up before I can.
I mean,
take
it's
my
okay. You can just
hoodie off.
take it all off.
I could, but it's really strapped on tight.
Is that one of the LU fanny packs they
Yep.
gave out?
Liberty Flames fanny pack. Yeah, my shorts don't stay up because I've got my summer bod, which is a little bit trimmer than the
I'm trying to
hibernation
get
season
there.
bod.
I'm trying to get there.
I'm still in hibernation season.
I'll train you.
All you podcast listeners, look at this. See all this? I'm trying to lose all that.
Oh,
in the
yeah.
Summer. You can hear it.
No, mine's
Sticks.
pretty deep too. I did pretty good at the beginning, and then I started losing sleep, and then I started getting stressed, and then I was like, I could use some ice cream, and then
Right.
I was just like, I'm stressed. I need like a cookie, and then it was downhill from there.
So I started a new gym regimen.
Okay.
Calisthenics. Basically just body weight.
Yeah,
And it's tough.
it is tough.
You do one workout. First time doing it, you will wreck yourself for a whole 5 days. You can't go back to the gym because you're done.
Yeah.
The thing is, you have
Honestly,
to keep pushing.
getting a workout regimen is not as hard as I think people imagine.
Yeah,
They
and
think that they're going to have to do everything by some kind of set system, and that's not necessarily true.
And the beauty of calisthenics is you don't need a gym membership to do all of it.
No.
You just need a pull-up bar. You could get one of those easily. Maybe not even that.
That was how I got into shape enough to take fitness seriously
Yeah.
as a kid.
When did you start working out? Or
When I was probably 15.
okay,
That was I just at some point I got it in my head that a guy cannot be desirable without a killer bod.
It's true, though.
I mean, it seems like it kind of is the least we can do.
the dad bod is in though. Apparently,
Well, yeah, sure, but a
I've
dad
heard girls
bod, I feel
I've
like
heard girls cuddling with dad bods.
right. But the idea of the dad bod is that it's this paternal strength, where it's not showmanship anymore.
It's
He's got his
tender
values in
care
place,
and,
but he's
wisdom.
still the strong man
Right.
that he was back in his ripped
Prime.
days.
he's
Yeah.
just bulking.
in a way.
Yeah,
In a different type of way.
a different time.
One's muscle, one's fat.
He's got his
Yeah.
priorities in place, and
Yeah.
it shows.
Unless you've seen those 40-year-old men who are completely jacked and they're still going strong.
Yeah, but you get the
Those are-
sense that
I'm
they're
like,
spending
wow.
too much time in the gym. There is such thing as too much time for your lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I don't think everyone should make the gym their lifestyle.
No, it should be a supplement to your daily life.
Well, if you went, well, if you go an hour every single day.
You don't even have to go
I don't
every
go
day.
an hour.
Don't go
man.
every day.
I'm not saying I'm
You
the
need to
ultimate
rest.
No, 6
pristine
days a day.
example.
You don't have to. You can go 3
But
days a week.
You can
Just rest it. You need
and
rest days.
just work out till you feel the burn.
Yeah,
like
work
if
out
you
till
feel the
you-
burn, you did something
That's
right.
the thing. So like with my regimen, it's basically you go till you literally cannot go anymore. So
With
like,
each set.
With each set.
Yeah,
So like
same.
you do 7 at a time and then rest and then another 7 and then rest and another 7. And once you can't do like say you're just doing pull-ups first, so you do 7 pull-ups and you keep going until you can't, and then you do the thing where you hold it for as long as you can, and then you do the thing where you slowly let it down as long as, and you keep going until you just are done.
Yeah, that's the main thing if you're trying to learn form is just finish slow.
But keep your form, because like just because you're feeling the burn, that could also mean you have an injury. So you just got to make sure that you're doing it correctly. It's like,
So all this to say, we're becoming a fitness podcast.
yeah, I was gonna say at the end of the day.
Yeah, we're promoting a new protein powder called the Liberty Whey protein powder. Brand new in stores, 100% whey protein.
Love it.
The Liberty
The Liberty Way.
Way. The
Way.
Liberty Way.
Sick.
Yeah, we'll add a little bit of ketamine as well to pump you up for Jesus. Give you a little spiritual
There's a
experience.
Bible verse inside every bottle.
Endorsing ketamine.
I can
and
do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
with a little bit of bull testosterone.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. You started working out at 15. Were you overweight?
No.
Were you trying to
I was a skinny
compensate?
kid. Compensate
Did
for...
your dad beat you up?
Oof.
Oh, he said not to talk about family, so we'll keep it to.
But in case you're feeling bad about asking that, no, my dad did not beat
Okay,
me.
I was gonna say, like, he said don't talk about family, so now I'm worried that you just opened a wound. Okay, tell me about the tats, because you got some beautiful fresh ink.
Yeah, I'm ready to take a break on it. I've sort of let go of the idea of giving every tattoo a deep, explicit theme. Not explicit in like a,
Yeah.
but like clear-cut theme. And just getting stuff that I think looks cool. So, the forearm now has Calvin at the center. And some Calvin-esque imagery surrounding it. Speaking of which,
The guy who started
I totally
Calvin
forgot.
and Hobbes is from my hometown.
In Ohio.
Sugar Falls.
That's right. He said that he's based some of the Calvin scenery on Ohio.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. You grew up in Calvinville.
Yeah.
Would you recognize Bill Watterson if you saw him?
No.
Okay. Yeah, he doesn't show his face much. Good guy. I brought my studio for the first time since season 1.
Whoa.
Which I used to set up like surrounding the mic, thinking maybe it'll like block some of the ambient sound. So yeah, that framed picture at the top is now embedded in my forearm of the neo-cubist Calvin when he realizes that seeing from all perspectives is debilitating.
Dang. Really? Seen from all perspectives is debilitating.
It's like a physical representation of the fact that conceptually seeing every side of an issue kind of just doesn't align you with anyone. It's easier to just go back and stand up for one thing and be stubborn.
Interesting. What's your take on that?
That's my interpretation of the panel itself. So that's, I'm
No, I mean, what's
I'm
your
putting it
take?
in the words that I think are true.
Yeah, okay. So you believe in that thought?
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
Does.
I mean, and as someone who I feel like I do see things from every perspective. I don't agree with every perspective, but I can understand everyone's perspective. And I think that's something that's missing for a lot of people. They just haven't even learned how to, rather than straw manning other people, how to see their side the most accurately they can. They might be taught how to see other people's views sympathetically, but that's not good enough. You have to try to rationalize it and then be honest about whether or not you're right and or they're right. It's not always either or.
Yeah. That's why I'm doing the Critical Thinking Coalition.
I like that. Critical thinking means a lot to me because I taught a class called Critical and Creative Thinking, which unfortunately they didn't give me the resources and assistance needed to really make it good. And it's hard to quantify that. And everything has to be quantifiable in the public school system. But it's something that I've spent a lot of time thinking about. What's the goal of your club?
The goal of the club is to, because like you said, I feel like a lot of people need to open up a lot more and be able to, even if they don't necessarily agree with the other person's viewpoint, be able to understand why they think that way, and be also be able to actually listen to it instead of just immediately interrupting or shutting the person down or people down. Like, listen to the viewpoint, respect it, and then politely, and then in our stance from a biblical perspective or standpoint, say why you believe that's wrong.
So when the Critical Thinking Coalition sits down for their monthly meeting, and I assume they're pounding some caffeine and some biscuits, tea and biscuits.
Yeah.
Biscuits. Are we talking like Cracker Barrel biscuit, or are we talking like
I don't know.
airplane like cinnamon wafer biscuit type thing?
I am picturing kind of a weird group. I mean, maybe they do meet at Cracker Barrel.
Sheltered, possibly.
Perhaps
we are trying to
not that critical thinking
go
should
to
be,
the sheltered.
Yeah, it should be a weird outcast sort of hobby.
Yeah, we
I'm
were
joking.
but
No, well, I think most of the time when I think the Critical Thinking Coalition, I think of something that a bunch of homeschoolers would join. It's something that I would grow up and my friends would go to.
That's the thing. You got to find a way to make it cool.
Not that it's not cool. I think critical thinking is great.
But like Joe Rogan makes it cool, and he doesn't call
because
it.
he smokes weed.
Exactly.
So maybe if you started smoking weed at the coalition meetings,
okay, that's fine.
Everyone would be so much more open-minded.
Tell them that you'll be smoking weed, but then the weed isn't an illicit substance. The weed is dandelion weeds or just
or what if
whatever.
It's not? What if you?
But you pack it real good, and these first timers have no clue that they're not getting lit. They're just like 420, bruh.
And they're like, "Yeah, I love your ideas.
Blaze
dude.
up."
Love those ideas, dude. Critical thinking.
Oh yes, tell me your opinions.
Well, let's start with this. The question that everybody kind of asks me when we first meet here is, why are you doing this podcast? They want to know why I invited them. Most of the time I haven't met them before. Why are we here doing this? And I guess the other part of it is, why you? Why me?
Why you?
Like,
why
you?
you?
Why am I
Why
the one
you,
that
Matt?
wants to be
Why
doing it?
you?
I always give them an answer, and it's always different. But I've never like even
Stop
aired it at
avoiding the
front of
question. Just
episode.
answer.
The answer's always different.
Do you feel
Is what I'm
entitled
saying.
to this position?
I don't feel entitled to
Do
anything.
you feel like you own?
I don't even feel entitled to like ask someone to coffee or something, but I do feel like I can ask them to come sit on the other side of a microphone and spend an hour trying to, go as deep as we
Do you
can.
at least offer?
Because
them
like I
coffee?
really believe in that.
offer
What?
them coffee.
Offer? Yeah, I thought about it at first, but then I just had so much stuff in my hands in my backpack. It was just a disaster waiting to happen. I was like always really like nervous at first, but now I'm kind of comfortable with it.
Takes a while.
It did take a while. But I think usually by the end of it, people kind of understand like why we do this. It starts to make sense. So it's always been really hard to explain, but I sort of see it like it's not the same dialogue we'd be having if we went and grabbed lunch.
Yeah.
It's almost a game. Like, let's just see what's the furthest we can go in this amount of time. Like, and it's on me. I'm like, I've been here before. I'll take you down that road as quickly as I know how. And then, anything you say, it's not really on you, because I'm the one that invited you. So then people are like more willing to be transparent and say things that otherwise they might not even like feel licensed to say. So that's why I think it's a good thing. And part of it is just like, I want to do the thing, in the world that I would want other people to be doing. And I think like if I was a college student, I would love the idea, because I already love podcasts. I would just, the idea that like I could listen to podcasts with other people who I might see, like just walking around. I would be so into that. And maybe other people aren't as into it as I am, but that's why I'm the one doing it.
What year
You said
did
it's
you
a dream.
start?
Yeah. Well.
I started this last January, like
Oh, so
2018.
it's fairly young.
Technically a year and a half, but I took off one semester from it. So by the end of this, we will have done it one full school year.
When did the idea pop into your head?
Okay, so then now it's time for the longer answer.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Because there was a distinct time when it popped into my head. But it's a long kind of progression to that point.
Really?
So I'll just put it this way. I've always like had a lot of opinions that I wanted to get out, but I'm not the kind of person that like pushes them to the top of the heap. Like I don't get loud. I'm not like, my opinion matters the most. I'm not that kind of homeschool kid. And we all know those types, right? We like really think that they get it and no one else does. But I do like to kind of put it where it's accessible and be like, hey, my thoughts are out there. So when I was a kid, like I would write magazines. They weren't for anybody. I'd write newspapers with like the stats from our front yard sports and like leave it on the neighbor's porch, but not expecting anyone to read it. I would, do all kinds of creative stuff like that. And I was very like, I could stick to a schedule and like keep up the output and with nobody making me do it, So like the production schedule is no issue. Like once I'm committed to something, I'm obsessive about it. If you told me that I'd be doing a podcast, I wouldn't have known what that meant. But if you said that like adult Matt is going to be talking into a microphone, I'd have been like, that's the coolest guy in the world. And he must be rich because people who talk into microphones are rich. Obviously not the case. So that was not looking like my most likely path when I got to high school. I developed a horrible fear of speaking. Like not even just like get up on stage, palms are sweaty, but like always fear of speaking. Like to where it became basically a fear of everything. Like I was scared to even leave the house in case a reporter comes up to me and is like, so what do you think of the situation? Like that was enough of a fear to just always be in dread. And that was still going on when I got to college. So like I wasn't having a great experience at first.
Do you have an idea of why that fear started? Have you ever gone back and tried to figure it out?
I know when it started. I went from giving my first like speech in a high school co-op where there's like a significant audience and doing great. My teacher straight up saying, that's the example. Like Matt's speech is the one that you should emulate, to bombing the next one. I'd never had the experience of like bombing a speech and just like feeling my voice be gone and panicking. I'd panicked before, but not about that. So it was so shocking the first time and I couldn't make sense of it. Eventually I realized that like a lot of my fears, they do connect to some kind of legitimate reason why I should be afraid of it. And eventually I just realized like, yeah, my fear mechanism when it comes to being in front of a crowd is that like my throat closes up and like, it's kind of, it's not what you want when you're trying to speak. Some of us, that's what happens. We become the kid where it's like, oh, please just get him off stage. Like mercy, kill this one. This is not good. Like it hurts everybody. So that would be me. And that was still how I was when I got to college. The thing that got me somewhat able to speak again was finding different outlets to express myself, just to get ideas out. So like when I first got here for my undergrad, maybe my second year, I just started writing. I knew I had a lot of like deep thoughts. I mean, they were like philosophy 101 deep thoughts, but like things that weren't going to like fit into normal conversation. So I just started writing and I was like, I'm going to turn this into a book. I'm going to just write everything I think and write a book. And I definitely thought, like everyone's going to be like, their minds are going to be blown that a 20-year-old wrote a book. Like that'll make me the coolest guy in the world. It doesn't work that way. And the book was terrible. Like if I look back on it, I still have it.
Oh, you did write it.
I wrote it and I manually produced one copy of it, which I eventually just threw away. But
No.
I still have a digital file of it and I'll look back on it every so often and I'm like, these are just the thoughts of a manic depressive person. But I see myself in it. Like there was definitely value. I mean, for sure, I would say anyone should practice putting their thoughts into words because that gives you the ability to speak them more confidently when you're on the spot, especially if you're not quick at generating your thoughts. So that was big. It didn't get me over, the fear. I still had a lot of anxiety, but from there, it's just kind of, it liberated me to do other things, one after the other. I just went through phases. Like then I started writing comics, which were like very wordy. The whole, like every single comic strip had the same pattern to it. It was like these guys would have this sort of intellectual, pretentious conversation, which is based on like something me and my friends had really talked about, and then just come up with like the worst solution to implement that in society possible. It was kind of like Nathan For You, if you've seen that show, where it's just bad solutions. And once again, produced an entire book. Then, I was kind of dabbling in movies. I still do. I went back and picked up a script that I'd started in my dorm. That along with several other of my other ideas, just kind of fizzled out and it wasn't entertainment, but it was just me trying to find, an outlet for something I had to say. And I ended up turning it into an audio drama. So the context of it was two guys in a podcast in the future. So I'd never actually podcasted. I had one friend who did it, and I would sometimes be a guest on his thing. But me and him just kind of rehearsed this like fiction podcast that I'd written. And that was like, just in the process of doing that, we read through so many pages of a fake podcast I had drafted that like over a few weeks I became comfortable with it, which was super weird. But like, it was kind of after that, I hadn't even thought about coming back to Liberty. Yeah, I was graduated at that point. I was tired of spending too much on rent in the DC area. I was checking out places in a small town in North Carolina, a really small town. All I knew was that I could live for cheap and like be decently respected. I wouldn't be looked down on, and I would have one friend there, and that was good enough. So I was going to check out a place down there, which was really hard to like explain to people. They're like, "Why do you want to move to North Carolina?" But the answer was basically like, my life right now is not worth the price of admission in DC. I would like to go somewhere cheap. It turned out that Liberty was on the way back, and I had a friend here that I could visit. So I did, and like, that's when it clicked. Like, everything I was looking for there, I could have in Lynchburg. So the same day that I decided to move back to Lynchburg, I literally remember what road I was driving on when it hit me. Like, I should just start a podcast. Like, that's the logical next thing. And I didn't think it was weird for some reason that I wasn't a student yet, but I would just do a podcast with students. I was like, they're adults. I'm an adult. There's lots of them. They'll connect over this. That didn't work as quickly as I thought, but we're there now, sort of. So yeah, I just did it. And like, sometimes you just got to do a thing. Like, it doesn't even matter if it's perfect. It was just, I knew that microphones were cheap. I needed something that didn't rely on a whole like crew like movies do. And telling stories in a very narrative way wasn't really cutting it. I realized through that one thing that script that I spent like 5 years on, I just realized like, I need to just be able to talk and not try to turn it into entertainment or production. And that took me a while. Like, it was still, you can still tell listening to the early ones that I'm reading off a page and just trying to say something. But like, by this point, I feel like I've gotten so many of those things out that I'm kind of liberated mentally. So it's a very long answer. To a question you didn't even ask. But a lot of people did ask why I started the podcast.
So I have a question.
Yeah, you can ask anything.
You kept mentioning, that didn't make me cool, or this didn't make me cool. Was that just sort of a funny thing you were saying on the spot here, or is that something you were actually trying to look for in these outlets, but ended up realizing some greater kind of like monk type enlightenment? Like, I don't need to be searching for fulfillment in other people's praise of me or coolness.
No, I still need that.
Okay.
When I talk about trying to achieve something that people would think I was cool, yeah, I always have to, like, when I do any project, I have to view it with the biggest stakes that could possibly come out of it. Like, I'll make a goofy short film, and I'm like, this is going to go viral, and I'm going to get a call from a big director. This is going to be the break. Mm-hmm. And like, in the back of my head, I think I know that's not true. I certainly know that's not likely, but I kind of have to think about the most approval I could possibly get from something to make it worth it, which really, I mean, I've worked through that logically, and I know that's not a good mentality, to always need people's approval. I want to do things just because I want to do them. And I kept going at this for a pretty long time with nobody listening. So I think I was starting to realize that. But I also realized that at the end of the day, like, approval does mean something. If something isn't landing with other people, then like, what is it?
Did it help you, like, that mentality help you keep consistent with quality? in terms of trying to be perfectionist, sort of wanting a higher quality in what you produced?
Yes. It makes me, I'm not a perfectionist, but I'll kind of decide what genre I'm aiming for with something, and I don't want to make goofy little moments that kind of would identify it as like a very amateurish independent thing. Whereas other people who've kind of loosened up are going to be like, yeah, let's just have fun with this. So sometimes it gets in the way, but sometimes it's kind of, a guide.
Interesting.
I'm just amazed that I'm really happy that something like this was able to bring your fear all the way back down to the point of where you could easily talk to people and be confident. And I don't know to the extent that like you're able to do that if it's still in groups of people, you have a nervous time or a hard time, or the fact that like one-on-one if you ever get nervous, or it's the fact that you're in front of something. You know how like when you get in front of a mic all of a sudden you have to change.
Oh yeah. There's a performance aspect
Yeah.
to podcasting for sure. But I mean, I think that's the case in life anyway. Like I kind of always, it's not even a choice. I just sort of realize that I adapt to the situation. I try to please other people. So I'm always kind of performing. But yeah, to your point, I am still nervous about everything pretty much all the time. But this was the first year that when I got back in classes, I had to like give speeches again, and this was the first time I felt like I wasn't a total train wreck. So yeah, and that I can just arrange a podcast with somebody and talk to them and not. Yeah, I mean, there's still like, I always, I'll just have these like mental lapses, but then I get comfortable. It's like I know that once I push through for a few minutes, I'll be good. So no, like I don't expect to ever fully get over a fear. I know that that's partly just how I'm wired, but it's been a huge progression, and I've gotten like everything out of it that I possibly really could have hoped, except for like millions of adoring fans.
Yeah, it seems like you coped with it and you learned how to relax. So, I mean, anxiety. That's stuff.
Yeah, a lot of times I think I sort of believe in my anxiety. Like I really do almost trust anxiety and depression that like they sort of know what they're doing. It's not always totally irrational. And I don't see like a version of myself that could be totally anxiety free. But it's good to push yourself with experiences that make you uncomfortable so that you're not just identifying as anxious and as a result not doing anything and never figuring out how far you could potentially push that. But I'll always be like a generally anxious person. That's just how it is.
Yeah, well, no one's going to be... The point of bravery isn't that you have no fear, but you're able to overcome it.
Yeah. Right, that you'll face it.
Mm-hmm. You can face it.
Yeah. So some of us have to invest a lot of energy in being brave.
But you can still do it. Doesn't matter as long as you do it, right?
As long as you do it. Yeah, and sometimes like you might think that the way like taking a way around something is somehow less noble or illegitimate. I do think it would have been good for me to not have been like forced into some situations. If I could have been the kid who has a note from his doctor that says, hey, he'll have a panic attack if you make him give this speech. Like, let's cut him some slack. I might have been able to get over that a little more quickly. And there's been other times in my life when like I think I tried so hard to confront something that I made myself more afraid of it. So there's things like that. Yeah, you grow from it at the same time, but I don't know, man. Sometimes, some people just have a tough brain to live with.
You're telling me I've got ADHD.
Yeah, everybody's got a different struggle, Yeah, I'm not trying to talk about myself like I think I'm somehow so different from other people that they don't get it. Because if that was the case, I wouldn't talk about it. And like, I don't ever want to be someone who like compares who has it worse or anything like that. Because I think the point is that there's not really a baseline.
No.
And once we realize that everyone's got different struggles, but not even just different degrees of struggle, but such different types of brains that, like, if there's a problem, and it's not a distinct problem with a gene itself, the problem is with the environment the person is interacting with. It doesn't mean you have to change the entire world that everyone lives in to suit each individual, because that's not going to work either. But we need to realize that, like, there needs to be different accommodations made for different people to bring out their strengths. It's not just to avoid anyone ever having to be triggered ever or whatever. It's about giving people space to thrive. And sometimes I don't exactly know how to do that, but I understand, like, what it's like to really be horribly afraid of, like, mundane things. So hope this isn't a total downer that I'm just talking about mental illness, basically.
No, everyone, it's funny. Everybody has a different baseline. I actually talked about this like a while ago. Another thing I need to do is learn how to stop saying like all the time.
Yeah.
I've been working on that.
Put spaces between all your words. Actually, the filler words are easy to edit. That sometimes makes easier segues.
Really?
But as long as you enunciate everything.
Yeah. I'm trying to. Unfortunately, I have braces, so it causes me to slur.
Just speak slowly.
Yeah.
And then I can chop it up.
Oh yeah. So everyone has a different baseline, but everyone gets happy and everyone gets sad. So the issue is that everyone compares to each other and saying, like, I shouldn't say that what I did is courageous because a man in the army, nice hair. Wow, nice hair. Yeah, I'll let you take that picture.
Go ahead, keep talking.
Okay. Everyone gets happy and everyone gets sad. The baseline's just different. So just because Connor's hair looks gorgeous, by the way, I just want to let everybody know. We'll put that on the gram. So somebody's like who's in a third world country and someone who lives in a multi-million-dollar family, people go, oh, they have money, they should be fine, stop complaining. That's stupid because they're still going to have issues. Their issues are going to be, maybe they're fine with not having to physically worry about, like, you know, where are they going to sleep, what's their next meal, but their issues are going to be significantly different. And so when their baseline changes, if something happens to them that's a bad experience, they're going to get sad or hurt or have trauma in some way, whatever it is. And people in, we'll just use an example, a third world country, something can make them happy, and they'll have that same feeling. So just because their baseline's different doesn't mean that the feelings are going to change.
You're talking about the circumstantial baseline.
Yeah. So you shouldn't compare yourself to somebody in a different situation because you're both going to feel the same way if something good or bad happens.
Everyone's capable of the whole range of emotions, is
yes.
what you're saying.
So you should take what you have and not compare it to other people, because you could do that for days. You could say, well, at least I have food. Well, yeah, but you're still really struggling mentally.
Oh, you're talking about when somebody tries to put it in perspective.
Yes.
By basically telling you have it.
Yeah, it's like, it's like you should, like, I don't know if I'm going to get into check your privilege thing. We'll just say that, like, I go to McDonald's all the time. Well, somebody in a third world country, they go to the McDonald's once in their entire lives, and that's like a hit for like an entire year. It's like, remember when we went to McDonald's? And for us, we take it for granted all the time.
Right.
So we would say that made them really happy. So it's like, well, just because this is happening to me, I shouldn't complain. Yeah. Eventually, that's going to build up a ton. It's just different for you because you're in a different, you're at a different point of, what do I think? Different, like, living class or different living...
Yeah, that's basically what it is. It's a different perception of what the ingredients of good and bad are. And the fact that there are some people who have it so abysmally bad all the time, that's fundamentally a philosophical problem. And sometimes, you know, I do need that to put it in perspective. But, like, this generation is kind of the pristine example of this because, like, we've all got this luxury of a smartphone on us. Like, we should be super happy, but no, like, you acclimate to the environment that you live in, and like you said, a brain is a brain. It's going to experience the whole range.
Yeah, a lot of people say nobody's knows what I'm going through. If they have depression or something, you go, well, they didn't have the same thing happen, and then maybe yours was more extreme or lighter than theirs, but you both are still having the same feelings. That's the thing. You can bond through the fact that you have depression, not of what caused you to get there.
Right.
So, and although it isn't,
what's the essence of life? Is it the feelings or is it that we all have the same life. No, it's the difference in the feelings we experience.
Boom.
So
Look at us getting philosophical.
that's not even philosophical, man.
I know, but I just mean
That's fundamentals.
We got deep.
Grab your shovels, boys.
You know, are we gonna start digging our graves?
No, I meant we're gonna just dig. We're gonna go deep.
Okay. Have you experienced depression?
Yes, that's just kind of part of my makeup. But like I said, like I still, even when I'm like doing well and I don't feel like I'm depressed right now, I need help, I get what the depressed version of me was thinking.
Yeah.
And I almost think that that's the accurate self. Like, you know, when the bottom has just completely fallen out and I realized that everything that I kind of made my life about was just kind of props, you know, to like give my life an appearance of being good, and I don't actually like feel anything except that I want to be loved, maybe, is a real feeling. Mm-hmm. But that like everything in my life is fake. Like that's when I'll get depressed. I think depression is kind of related to panic. I think it's like the same kind of capacity for both, because it's like a panic attack about the fact that life isn't good or never will be. So
a lot of anxiety as well.
I've gotten to the point where like I've been through the cycle enough times that I know like, yeah, life will get good again. Or at least you'll have good feelings again.
That's
but
good.
I remember like just the realization of how many things in my life suddenly appear to be meaningless, and a lot of them are. So, you know, so
maybe you should change up the lifestyle then. It's harder to.
Well, you do. Every time that things like fall into shambles, that's kind of what you do. Is like instead of killing yourself, you kill a version of yourself.
Oh, sick! That's good.
And you sort of rebuild. Like you go through the stages of grief, kind of that you are losing something, and there's like different levels you can drop down. You know, if you have a guy that he's just lost his fortune in the stock market, right? He might throw himself off a skyscraper, even though he still had millions in his bank account. Or you can have a homeless guy on the street who just found $10 on the ground and he's ecstatic, you know? And so we're all capable of kind of adjusting to our circumstances, but you have to experience, you know, and maybe the guy who was homeless actually finds, you know, he gets enough money somehow that like his life does change a little bit, but now he's living with more something to lose. You know, so you go through different stages of how much you've got to lose. That's kind of what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And I don't think you should ever really hit a point where you think you've lost it all and you can't regain anything unless you've experienced some trauma so terrible that you just your body itself knows you can't contribute to society again. But I think that's only, you know, if you're being tortured, basically.
Yeah, so I can get pretty deep. It's crazy how suicide works. You get to the point where a lot of times I've heard it's not that they want to die, but it's that they can't find any other way that it would solve or stop the feeling that they're getting.
Right. And if it's just pure suffering, I mean, the degree of suffering a person can experience is massive. But like, I feel like I've experienced as much psychological suffering as I'm capable of, and I've recovered from it. Like, I don't think it will get worse than it did at a certain age in my life. So it's like, I know that I can bounce back in that way from anything. But I agree with the fact that it's not usually a logical choice. Mm-hmm. But in a weird way, sometimes I think they're internally weighing whether their life would have more, whether the person they have been would have more value dead or alive. When they're thinking in terms of like kind of social capital, you know, for some people, like the statement that it makes to kill themselves is actually the most valuable thing they could get.
Which is sad.
Yeah, well, it is, but sometimes like there are certain cases you can look at where it's like, was it going to get any better? Like nobody was going to acknowledge them unless they did that. That was the most powerful thing they could do. So I think most of the time people leap to it no pun intended, too quickly. You know what I mean? They're like, yeah, that's the thing to do now. I've never been this depressed.
Yeah.
I guess this is when people kill
And
themselves.
it's because they don't have,
So they do it.
they haven't been taught other options or other ways.
Well, and they've seen just so many examples of suicide, like especially when kids do it. I think it's because they've heard of people doing this so many times.
And you're
like,
more
that's
emotional.
the thing to do.
You're a lot more
They're not
emotional
even
as a kid.
processing what death actually means.
Mm-hmm.
But there are cases like, I mean, you talk about Robin Williams a lot. Like, if he was in fact dying of a degenerative disease and he was suffering more than people knew, and now everyone realizes, hey, the funny guys are suffering a lot, his death had some value. Like, I don't want to like advocate for his suicide, but it's like, maybe that was the most meaningful thing he could do.
I think I would look at it from. I think I would look at it from a point of view. Suicide and depression and all that is, which I've experienced. Not suicide, but depression. They're not good things in and of themselves, and like, the Lord didn't want us to go through this. It's just because of the fall and because of like, this is how like sin entered the world. You know, we have these issues now. We have to go through them. But I think the beauty in it is that even in the brokenness, the Lord's able to make some sort of good thing come out of it. And like you were saying, through his suicide, not that it's a good thing. I don't think the Lord was like, oh, joy, this guy just killed himself. You know, he was probably sad just as much as, you know, other people were. But it's like, still, there was some good that was able to come out of it. And like the Lord's still able to work through that. Still able to bring good out of it.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's the way I see it.
That makes sense.
That's the kind of the bright side to look at it. And since I look at everything in terms of like biological evolution, I'm like, oh, I guess depression is a mechanism to like, you know, that if you felt a certain loss of value, it either wants you to radically change or die. And so that's a little bit of a more hopeful approach for sure.
Yeah,
pessimistic.
I think
versus
I
optimistic
don't know.
view.
I mean, I guess I am. I think if you ask anyone who knows me, they'd probably be like, "Oh yeah, he's an optimist," because I think I am. But I also just think like, I don't know what sort of views you guys have on this, but I kind of tend to view a lot of things that happen in the world, like, especially I started over this past semester seeing it like a lot more of like the spiritual warfare behind everything. I like think there's a lot more that has to do with like demonic attacks and spiritual warfare.
There's a lot going on.
That has to do with that is behind psychological issues that people have, like depression and anxiety. And I think we're too quick to label them as a chemical indifference or something like that, and we don't give any idea like maybe this is like a spiritual attack, we should pray or something like that. I don't know. I know that there is definitely like chemical indifferences and all that sort of like medical stuff, but I've seen like people like who've gotten over depression without even taking drugs, just by like praying through it and asking the Lord to take it away or that sort of thing. But I don't know. It's interesting. I still don't know where I stand on how much of it's like actual physical ailment and how much of it's actually spiritual attack.
Yeah. So I want to get back to you on this, but I think if I felt that those lowest lows were the devil attacking me, I think that would have done me in, to be honest. I would have felt like, well, his power is probably virtually unlimited, right? So what am I supposed to do against it, you know? Whereas because I sort of supplement whatever spiritual views I held at the time with a natural sort of trying to infer from the self-evident, right? I was like, so this also has to make sense to me somehow. Mm-hmm. You know, I tried to, I was sort of my own therapist, you know, I got pretty good at explaining what was going on in my head to myself, so that even though I believed in God, it was better for me than spiritual terms. But to you, I mean, you really believe that. You're not just using that as an illustration to help somebody. Like, why do you think that a natural explanation is not enough? It has to be something supernatural.
I think, for me personally, I find more I guess, I almost find more comfort in the fact that it's spiritual attack, because for me, I don't know, I've just gained so much faith, like, in the power that of the Holy Spirit and the power of like God over the past semester, just the power of like Jesus's name and just like faith in that when I get into the moments of like extreme depression or anxiety, and I just, I realize that I actually have the creator of the whole universe on my side, and if I call out to him, then he can help me through this. And I end up getting through it a lot quicker. I've never been diagnosed with anything, but I know that I have been in those areas. I've been in areas where I've like felt like suicide, felt like that sort of thing. But my parents were never people to like go to the doctor and be like, let's get him like diagnosed with something like, oh, you have clinical or like depression or ADHD or all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, you don't need a label.
Right. So I guess what I'm saying is like, I don't know. I guess I am a firm believer in the fact that there is spiritual warfare going on, and that's like, I don't know. It's become real to me, and I don't know. I see what you're saying, and I guess I find comfort in the fact that it's spiritual warfare, and I have the creator of the universe on my side, who like has already triumphed.
Because
like
it means, you've got the winning hand.
Like he's already triumphed over this, and I know that like these attacks are like, it's almost one thing. I don't know. This is just a
Dude, do it.
tangent. I was like, I'm getting all spiritual on you guys, but
Please do, because I'm wrestling with the spiritual.
So I went to I go to this church called Breakthrough. They meet Sunday nights. I went there and I was like, they were just preaching and they were just talking about how like they were opening up the mic and encouraging people just to come up and in faith kind of give their full commitment over to the Lord. Like just if they've been seeing something in their life that's been holding them back from like really committing to their relationship with Christ, just to come and give it over just publicly and get some, like have people pray with you and that sort of thing. And I realized that I hadn't been like in my walk with Christ putting aside time to like read the Bible or like pray or spend any time really consistently like that. But I'd still been seeing how the Lord had been like working through me and working in me, even with my sort of half-hearted like commitment, and just sort of my like faith that I had, even without this sort of consistent relationship, pursuing the consistent relationship with him. And so I was like, I just want to give this, I want to sort of stand up, I want to give this over, I want to just like recommit, I guess you could say, and like cut more time out of my life to like spend time with him. Anyways, so I got up, I did that, and I just was like, felt really like freed. And that like next Monday and like the rest of that week, I started really like actually putting time into reading the word and like just praying and like spending time with God. And it was awesome. It was amazing. And so a few days in though, one night, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, just started having extreme depression and anxiety. I didn't know why. I just sort of, depression and anxiety just came over me. It was really weird. Because it was for no really apparent reason. And it was really bad. Like I couldn't sleep. It was so bad. Like, you know that like feeling? It's like right here, like this sort of like
you feel everything just sinking, like like it's gone. That's why people call the doctor the first time they have a panic attack, because they don't know what's going on.
Right, and I was so confused as to why. And then so I don't know if people will call me psychotic or something, but I started having this voice in my head, and it's like, I control you. Like, you have no control over yourself. I control you. And I'm like, what the frick? This is so weird. And so I just started praying, and I'm like, Jesus, take this away. I don't know what it is attacking me right now. And so I started praying. After like praying for like 10 minutes, it all just left, and I fell asleep. And I woke up the next day, and I kind of was like thinking about what happened, and I kind of feel like it was almost like an attack because like the Lord, I don't know, I think it was somewhere in the New Testament, I don't know if it's Paul, but someone was like we should count it joy, my brothers, when we face trials of any kind for our faith, or like when we're persecuted.
Yeah.
And it kind of hit me like we could be persecuted for our faith spiritually.
Right.
Not just physical, like people yelling at us, attacking us, stoning us or whatever. It could be spiritual attack for our faith. And I realized why that attack came. I look at it as an attack because I realized that came right after I'd started actually walking in my faith and committing myself fully. It came like 3 days after that happened.
Yeah.
So it was kind of an interesting timing for this random attack of this like extreme depression, anxiety to come over me. It happened right after I was like, I'm going to really walk in my faith now powerfully. And I feel like Satan or whatever demonic forces were like, oh no, like we're losing him. Like we need control over him now. We need to like really attack him now because he's actually walking in his faith. That's what I think my personal belief is of why that happened. And it just makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Just because that's the timing of it was too like it seemed like it was not a coincidence for me for that to happen.
Right.
And it was almost
I'm
encouraging.
sure at some level it wasn't.
And it was almost encouraging for me. It's like I'm doing something right because I'm being attacked. I'm doing something right. But that's just one instance. But like, I don't know. I've had conversations like this with lots of people, lots of my friends and stuff. They're like, well, you're ignoring too much of the facts of like like I actually have a chemical problem in my brain. Like my brain doesn't produce enough what's it called?
Serotonin, dopamine,
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, it's all kind of works together.
You actually, your brain actually doesn't, or
No, I'm saying friends say that.
They're trying to give a natural explanation, but
I'm maybe if I went to the doctor, that might happen.
yeah,
They might
but
say
that doesn't
that too.
debunk the
But what I'm saying is
possibility,
like that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that could even be like
the mechanism.
We see like the spiritual realm affects us.
Yeah.
They can affect us somehow, and it might show up on tests that we do. It might show up as a chemical indifference. But that doesn't exclude the fact that the spiritual realm could have attacked you and caused that chemical indifference.
Right.
Which, I don't know, maybe. Or
Well,
maybe
yeah,
we're born with that.
It's
I don't
kind
know.
of similar to like how people look at miracles. It's like, yes, it was a miracle, but obviously it resulted in something physical happening. So
Yeah.
there must have been some transfer
Like-
of matter and energy that's real. So
Right, and like,
it works together, presumably.
yeah, and like, I don't know. This past semester, I've just been like exposed to things like, praying for healing over people. Like, I don't know, I grew up in a church where prayers were kind of like, Lord, if it be your will, give the doctors wisdom, and like, if it be your will, like, possibly let them, get over this. Like, kind of these like, not that they're not powerful. The Lord hears all prayers, but
It's
like
logic prayers where you cover all your bases.
yeah, and I was like, well, like I saw the apostles in Acts like praying these prayers like, in the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, be healed, stand up and walk. Like they were praying with the power of the Holy Spirit. It wasn't just like there are people. It was like after Jesus left and sent His Holy Spirit, they were able to pray these things. And so I don't know. I just stepped into the faith of that, and I like prayed over a friend one time, and they were healed of their sore throat. They had like a cold for a week. One weekend we were like out to dinner. I just prayed over them, and they looked at. I would look like I'm like amen, and I looked up at them, and they were looking at me like, I'm like what? And they're like, I just had like this tingles go over me, and then like my sore throat's gone now, and I'm like whoa. I'm like dope. Like or like a headache, or like someone had a migraine or concussion, and they got like all these symptoms just went away.
Yeah.
Like from praying over them. And so I don't know. I guess either it's just been a lot of coincidence lined up after each other, or there's something going on here that
Right.
I'm trying to still sort of understand.
Yeah. And like in the story of a lot of the great church leaders and influential people, like there's parts where it's just them wrestling what basically they would describe as like demons, and just it's when they're like actually wrestling with the rational issues the most that they're like, you got Martin Luther like screaming at the devil, and like we don't think about that really except in a weird Pentecostal way, like that someone would really feel like they're engaged in a fight. And I mean, anyone who listens to this podcast knows that I'm currently like abstaining from using spiritual terms, because if I do believe in that, I still feel like it needs to align with self-evident reality. So it's not that I'm throwing it out, but I've made cases kind of trying to debunk the sort of things you just talked about. But like you were sort of getting into, like, there can be a physical and a spiritual reality that align, that aren't necessarily mutually exclusive. And that's what I hope. Like, I do want that to be real, but I don't know what it means, or what it offers exclusively that I can't use logic to get to, unless that power is, it's like I just haven't experienced that same power.
Yeah.
I haven't experienced that, like, the miracles that people testify to. But there was a time in my life when I definitely thought I had. So it's a weird thing. It's like, am I the one that was given over to unbelief? Like, that's a biblical thing.
Well,
I don't know, but I look back and I'm like, nope, everything I was thinking and going through was normal brain things,
Right.
not
And
spiritual.
Yeah, and like I'd say I was like in that sort of spot last summer, like just trying to really make sure, like, logically go through things, like, which is not bad. I mean, I felt like I know now that it was kind of sort of taking away some of the power of just part of Christianity is faith. Like, you have to step into it with faith. Some of it you just can't quantify with like scientific terms. And I've just kind of come to realize that now. But I don't know. I think one like other point I've been thinking about with like depression and anxiety. I think a lot of times in the US we really tend to like diagnose things and treat it,
because we want to believe that everything is fixable,
right,
and we can restore everything to normal.
And I think that from my perspective, spiritual realm speaking, I think that Satan's okay with that. Like, he's like, they're trying to treat what we're doing to these people, what we're trying to oppress them with, like these attacks, with chemical medicines, and like they're okay with, like, spiritually speaking, like demons are okay with that, because it doesn't hurt them. They can still oppress you, they can still attack you, even though you're taking this drug. Like, you might still have depression. That's why I know people who take these drugs and they're still like, I'm like, it's not doing anything, I'm still struggling with this.
Yeah, and I mean, I believe in the possibility. I personally don't take medication because I feel like I don't want to give up my chance to be the best person I can be, and I think in some ways the best version of me suffers, with what I suffer with. But it's like, it can get you off of the metaphorical ledge, in a way. But if you never like can become independent of it, then like at what point? I mean, maybe there are people who have exactly the right dosage and they're able to be like, I'm the best version of me. But I don't know, man. I see more often than not, it's just it's like when you subdue the thing that seems wrong, you're subduing a lot more than that too.
Yeah, I don't know, and I don't really know. I know a lot of people can like get offended at like what I'm talking about, and like will say, "Dude, you're disregarding a bunch of people who like actually struggle with this," and like, no, I'm like, I'm there with you. Like, I have gone through depression and anxiety too, and I still have that issue.
Yeah, if you need it to live, that fine.
But like, yeah, and I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I'm still trying to like figure out where I stand on it all.
Yeah,
I guess.
And everyone's gonna be different. I mean, I think, like I said, I don't want to compare people's suffering. It's like, but I also, if it gives anyone hope or whatever, it's like, I do think I've been through the worst that I can imagine anyone. It's like, if there is like a maximum bad that the brain can experience, it's like, without having been, like Jordan referred to, like the worst, most oppressed person in the world, like haven't experienced the worst circumstances, but I feel like my brain has been allowed to go there, but I worked through it. It's never over. The goal isn't to never suffer anymore in this life, at least, but it's like I still experience happiness, like no matter how low you go. So that's why even if just a given day is super mundane, it's like, wow, the things I've gotten over.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Like, I didn't think I'd ever just feel good again, and I feel okay.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So that's saying something. You want to read some feel-good questions, if anybody submitted any?
That was a lot.
Or did you want to pivot the topic?
I liked everything you guys were saying. It's funny because I've a big thing I've been learning to do with ADHD is not interrupt. So it's very hard for me to not, because part of interrupting is apparently just the impulsiveness from it will just cause that to happen, and then the other aspect is just the fact that I'll forget what I want to say. So you guys will say something that I really want to touch on, and then by the time you've moved on or are continuing down, instead of me picking up that, I'll forget it. So that's another reason why I would just interrupt. And I hate it, but I know that if I don't do that, I'll forget about it.
Sometimes interrupting is the right thing to do. If
Yeah,
you
sometimes
know
it is.
the thing that you
Especially if
have in
they're
that
wrong.
moment, and sometimes you can talk over. I mean, you can say things at the same time, and the energy continues. But sometimes, like, you have to bet on yourself that you have the thing that takes the conversation the best way, that
For sure.
elevates everyone's understanding. So, like, yeah, I interrupt a lot on the podcast. Sometimes the thing I have to say in the moment, I believe, is the most mutually edifying thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah, you gotta do that. If you always think of yourself as the lesser, eventually you just end up devaluing yourself, and that can't possibly be what God would want.
No.
You know, love others as yourself. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But if you're like, everybody just step on me, you know, there's time to really lay yourself down, but you can acknowledge that you have something.
Yeah, no, but I like hearing both of you guys going back and forth. It was really cool hearing what you had to say. My grandma, I think she was born in 1930. And I remember she talked about how she had an experience, and I've heard other people with this too, with an Ouija board. And the fact that, like, that is a natural way to invite demons into your space. And she remembers vividly of the thing moving on its own. And you're like, well, how can you know? Because the hands. You know how when you know someone's telling the truth, she was like, I knew for a fact that it was moving of its own volition. That's freaky. I do believe that demons can be invited into your household. I believe that there is spiritual warfare going on in the background, and that demons can definitely know your darkest weaknesses and know how to attack you, especially when you're going towards God. And even if you don't believe in it, then yeah, fair enough, fine. But if you do believe in Christianity and the fact that, or you're going towards that faith, if things start to get bad, or you feel like all of a sudden some like really intense stuff is starting to happen, it's usually because they see that they're losing you, and so they'll try, like Satan or demons will try a lot harder to get at you.
When it comes to like supernatural events that people have witnessed and they have these testimonials about them, I'm still not sure like what to do with that, because it seems like, you know, you can't be held spiritually responsible for just denying something that you haven't experienced, or not denying, but just saying I don't yet believe that.
You want to see it yourself.
I don't even really want to, and rather not.
No?
But you know, if it's real and I'm somehow obligated to be the one that concludes that it is real, that I should relate to it, like, then don't I have to experience it? Do I have to believe people's accounts of events? And like, some of them are so compelling.
Yeah.
Especially the ones that are talking about demonic influence.
For sure, yeah.
You know, it's like my experience of reality of storytelling is that when people speak with this level of confidence, it's true. But there also are like patterns and similarities every time someone talks about a spiritual event, which makes it more likely to be explained naturalistically.
But
So I'm not. I don't feel compelled,
or completely spiritually too.
because
Right.
they're all experiencing the same.
either one could abide
Yeah.
by certain rules.
I know.
Because one thing just interesting to me is like, God is omnipresent, but demons and Satan aren't omnipresent. They're fallen angels, so they can't be in everywhere at once. So there could be demons that have oppressed multiple different people at multiple different times, and they could have shared similarities in their stories, which is interesting, because the demon might have a specific tactic they use at that point in time. Which is another interesting thing, is because I've seen like on campus, like people say, oh, there's a spirit depression over campus right now, or that sort of thing. Where it's interesting, I see it comes at certain times, and I've seen similar stories from different people who haven't talked to each other all over campus, experience the same sort of struggles and going through the same thing around the same time. Which my view is like, well, there could be like a group of demonic forces trying to attack at this specific time. They've all come in and they're like, we're going to attack right now. We're going to do this. This is our plan. Almost like a freaking war plan or something like that.
I don't know if there's a war.
Right.
Isn't that
And
crazy?
so-
Wouldn't that be amazing if you saw it?
One thing with what I was going through is like, with that whole attack that happened at that one point in time, is my friend Mac. He was kind of going through the exact same thing, and we happened to just see each other the weekend after this whole thing happened with me. I ended up, he had the same thing happened with him. Yeah, exact same week, same time frame, which was really interesting to me. I don't know.
But why is the best explanation that there's another realm that isn't ours interacting with ours when there's plenty of possible explanations in ours?
Well, that's
now,
just
like I said, I'm not opposed to the idea of other
That's
realms.
just their standpoint because they're Christians. It can be,
I think for me is like, since I'm a Christian, like it's in the Bible. I know for a fact, like if I believe one part of the Bible, I'm gonna believe pretty much everything. I'm gonna believe what's in the Bible because it's like
it's God's word.
I believe it.
But
So
let me ask you this: does your belief come from, or I'll put it in terms of an illustration? If you were someone who was not raised with any kind of faith or religion, would you be looking for an outside explanation? Would you be like, "This is so strange. We have to get to the bottom of it. It couldn't possibly be that we share a culture and a community and might be subject to the same influences. It has to be alien."
I think that. Well, I mean, I think that's interesting because like some of the most spiritual people are people who have never been affected by, never been influenced by the Bible, or people some of these like tribes that we've found that has had no contact with humanity for like hundreds of with thousands of years. We finally make contact with them, and they have like witch doctors and like these people, and they have this like spiritual sort of they have a spiritual reality. It's almost like something inside of us has this weird draw to trying to find something in a spiritual way.
Well, and I don't, that makes sense to me, that we should be looking for it, or that we should at least believe it or suspect that it is there and hope that it is there, because the fact that I say it every episode, the fact that we are conscious is freaking insane. The fact that anything exists is not explained by anything, and it seems almost inherently cannot be.
And looking at nature, I mean, one of the main points is that like you'll see God's work through nature. The whole intelligent design argument, the fact that like I can't remember what it's called. It's just like Giovanni's. What is it? It's the thing where it's like 3, 5, 8, 13. You know how
Da Vinci Code.
No, hold up, I'll get it for you.
It's a code that like all nature follows. I know it's
There's something sequence. The
Oh yeah,
Fibonacci number.
there we go. The Fibonacci, yeah, the numbers. And it was like everything follows that. Everything basically leads into a spiral some way or another. Look at galaxies. All of them will naturally spiral into a certain way.
Order is a real universal thing.
For sure.
And is probably inextricable from the idea of God, if there's a God.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They basically be one and the same.
And then
Or is order just
does
a
matter
concept that we have come up with to explain it?
Or yeah, and it's like how we
It's a valid
and like
question.
how
It's
we,
like
Yeah.
when you were talking about like why is it that we would immediately revert to it must be spiritual warfare or something. So the main reason for that would definitely just be depending on the person's beliefs. It's like, well, I'm a Christian and I believe
But the
this.
beliefs, I'm asking where the belief comes from. You're not born with beliefs. You get them from somewhere. And I always want people to kind of assess. This is another answer to why do I do the podcast.
Right.
I want them to explain why they got to that point. Did you just get it drilled in your head so many times that that's your language now? In which case, I mean, that's fine. Growing up with a certain language through which you understand things is okay, unless the literal implications of it would mean something that's in violation of the reality you now experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if you're being cognitively dissonant simply because you started out with these stories and you haven't gone back and figured out, oh, that doesn't actually make sense to me, it's probably time you should start making sense. But if you believe it because Well, there's epistemology in what believe even means. But if you're saying, like I have at some points in time, hey, I just think that's the only way there's any hope, that's fine. That's a good reason to live that way. Or if you have some kind of evidence for why you think it is the only explanation, that's great. I just want to hear people put it in their own words and show that it's their own, or else you become susceptible to any kind of whim or any convenient way of framing things. And the way we frame things, everything is framing, like I just said with regard to language, and one thing that actually made me kind of reopen to the idea of God was realizing no two people are ever even seeing anything exactly the same, including a person, right? Like me and Connor are both looking at Jordan in a different way right now, and no two people will ever see you or think of you in an identical way. And we call you Jordan.
Right on.
And you're a different thing to every single one of us. So the idea that, the fact that we're not all defining God exactly the same way, I kind of realized like, oh, that's how it has to be. That's how it is already. We don't experience any identical realities. We only have narrative and story to different degrees. But I think it's important to have some consistency to your narrative, because it's not, you can't condemn all of it, or you're condemning everything about our existence.
I think what makes something seem more convincing would almost be that there are some inconsistencies in the way everyone explains it, rather than it being completely consistent with everyone else's view. Because then it comes to the point where you think it's contrived, like they've all gotten into a room and said, this is how we're going to explain it. These are how all the facts, and we all have to say it the same way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like with the Gospels, like there are some little inconsistencies everywhere. Like one says like, oh, it was Mary and these two people who went to the grave and saw that. Oh, well, it was only the women that went to see, or like that sort of thing. Where it's interesting is like if they were in a room trying to figure out all their facts and make sure it was straight and make sure if this was all just a contrived story of Jesus's death and resurrection, then all those facts would be exactly the same in all of those letters.
I'm going to take a leap and say this is literally the purpose of life, is that because we all have a different angle, it's not to say that everyone's narrative is right, because most narratives are wrong. But the idea, the goal is that we align the different views and figure out what is shared. The closest thing to any absolute, people always give the example like, oh, the sky is blue. Like there's certain things you can't argue with. No, a good percentage of the world is colorblind, right? But then we get closer and closer to saying things are absolute the more people agree on them. And there's some things that almost everyone agrees on.
Yeah.
There are some things that possibly no human body could deny on a neural level is true, right? But by comparing everyone's slightly different perspective, we're getting, like you said, an imperfect view of whatever might be true.
Yeah.
So if there is any other realm, it's one where you would actually experience truth undiluted. The game, we're almost here playing a game of understanding this distillation of reality by sharing our different experiences with each other.
I mean, the whole point of society is to figure out what is truth and what's real, and like what's an opinion, and even everything that we say, oh, this is factual. Like stuff in science 100 years ago have changed. Like they thought that the Earth was the center of the universe, and people were like, yeah, absolutely, that's completely right. Now it's completely changed. We know obviously, and even for a few hundred years, like the heart, like all the parts of the heart, that's not going to change. But way back, they had no idea. So things are constantly changing. There's things that like even a lot of, and I'm not gonna bash, because obviously you want to be open to everything. But evolution, a lot of that is theories. So it's hard to prove something that's millions of years ago. So because it's theories, a lot of stuff has to be in belief as well. Like you have to have faith in the fact that that's true.
Yeah.
And things can have flaws, and everything is constantly being critiqued.
Joe Rogan was just doing a podcast with the archaeologist who was trying to completely turn over some prevailing theories about when civilizations began, how advanced they might have been, and he was just talking about how within the scientific community they reach these consensus. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
And they very often have to go back and reverse it. Like
Yeah.
we just kind of trust the highest expert because it's the best we can do. But maybe the real lesson we need to learn is you don't know what you don't know, and look how much things have been turned on their head throughout history. Why would you think you're the pinnacle of it all?
Mm-hmm. One way, sort of, I like to delve into the hypothetical and understanding how the world works and hypothetical ideas of that. I love watching movies and stories. And so Black Mirror is probably one of my favorite things on Netflix.
I need to get into that.
Because of how much it will just open your eyes up to hypothetical and things that are very near future type circumstances that could possibly happen easily with the technology advances that we are having. One episode was about this. It starts out and this guy's walking up to this facility and he has this little like smart like screen like thing and he's holding and he's like, all right, coach, what do I do now? And she's like, okay, go to the restaurant. And so then he goes to this restaurant. Basically it's this huge dating thing. So you're right away you think it's just this new facility they have for dating where like you go, they match you up with someone, and then they after you eat dinner together you also get a time limit on it. Says like what's your expiration date, and they say okay, it's gonna be like you have 36 hours and this relationship's gonna end, or like you have 4 years and this relationship's gonna end. And so basically you get a house and you get to live in this huge walled in community, and basically you keep going through these relationships until they eventually gather enough information to find your perfect match, and then you'll match up with them and then you get married and that sort of thing. So towards the end of the episode, so the whole episode you think that this is like real life and this was set in a future time when this is now the norm for dating, because conversations they had, they're like, what would it have been like before this? Like they had to actually have conversations and figure out when to end their relationship and stuff, like the people who are like what would people do without this? So you think it's this future technology. So then this lady, one of the scenes, she's like skipping stones, and she noticed that every time the stone only skipped 4 times. Like it would never go over 4 and never go under 4. It always skipped 4 times. And she just thought that was weird. And then she started seeing these inconsistencies. She's like, why are these trends happening? And then it turns out that she's like, it's a simulation. We need to leave right now. Cause like there are these bodyguards who, if you try to leave or try to go against the end date time, like they'll enforce it and that sort of thing. And so then she's like, I think this is a test in our relationship, and like we have to climb the wall and get out of here, and that's like our perfect match because we're our perfect match. And so like the two of them stand up at the dinner and like they run out, and the bodyguard has like a taser holding out, and she just touches the taser and everything stops. The whole world freezes and it's just them moving and everyone else is just frozen. And ends up it was a simulation being run by an app on someone's smartphone. And it ran like 900 simulations. It was a dating app on someone's phone. And the dating app runs these simulations on these two people and then figures out who's the right match for each other because of the simulations run in a world simulated.
Yeah.
So if that makes any sense. So
I get it.
It zooms out.
I understand, but I'm just like, holy cow!
Yeah, it zooms out and this girl's holding the app and she's like, oh, a 98% match, and she's walking into a bar and then she sees the guy and then the episode ends.
Yeah.
And so it makes me is like, the idea that our world has so much consistent, it's like we have math, we have these numbers that consistently pop up everywhere, like these sort of things. But it's like, you know, like the 4 times, always skipping 4 times. It's like that, but on a huge grand scale, there is consistency and structure.
Are you gonna say we're in a simulation?
I'm gonna say that in a weird way, it's almost like we are in some sort of created universe, which we are, because God, like if it's
But
true,
doesn't
like,
the skipping stone represent like a glitch?
no, the skipping stone is like the simulation has it set, like the randomizer or whatever, it's like a set up, like when you skip a stone,
It's a repeatable thing.
It's saying
It's a law.
4 skips.
Code
It's a
almost.
code, but like our code could just be super high complex, like AI, like we'll make it skip like this many times in this situation and many this times in this situation, randomizable. Like
we'll be able to do that.
Well, it seems that the randomization is probably near perfect if we're a simulation.
That's what I'm saying. So if it was a simulation, it's a super high tech one, but it would even in some sort of almost like, because in reality we really don't know why we're here.
Right.
We really don't know
It's
why.
to where the simulation theories they're not fringe like that.
They make more sense.
Very right. It almost makes it makes an incalculable comparison level of sense.
That's what I'm saying. So like what I'm saying is like the way our technology is going, it makes more sense that we are in a simulation than we're not.
The other thing that makes go ahead.
What I'm saying is like, in my opinion, with Christianity and that sort of thing, even with all that fun sort of like imagination of like, oh, we're in a simulation, it's fun to think about that
critical
sort of stuff.
exercise.
I think it almost makes more sense to believe in a God and a creator, in the fact that when we die, there's a greater purpose. If my faith boils down to anything, if it had to be boiled down to like, if I had to be like, not that my faith is based on, well, I got to pick all the choices and this looks like the best one, because there's more to my faith than that. But it's like, if I was talking to an atheist or someone who doesn't want to believe in anything, I'm like, if you had to make a choice, wouldn't it make more sense to believe in something where there's greater purpose and you don't just die and nothing happens and it's all meaningless?
Well, some people can't will themselves into believing something. It's more fun to believe that. It's more hopeful to believe that.
That's what I'm saying.
It depends on whether or not there's good alternatives.
So then they say that it's a coping mechanism instead of an actual you're following a religion because of the faith.
But I'm like, for me, okay, so
is it the only thing you can cope with?
For my faith, in terms of my faith, that's not why I believe it. I believe it because I'm fully convinced of it.
Yeah, but you're saying in that.
But I'm saying if I was trying to convince someone else and it's like nothing's working, I'm like, wouldn't you rather believe in something that gives you some like fragment of hope in life after death, or meaning to life,
a meaningful beyond?
Yeah.
Wouldn't
you want to believe in it? And I just don't understand why people wouldn't want to believe in it. I just don't understand.
They probably say that like, well, I'm focusing on my time here and I'm going to make use of the purpose that I will create of my own volition.
But then I just say like, why though? You're just going to die and that's going to be forgotten.
I think the only reason not to pick one of the good endings is if you think there might still be other good endings you might not have thought of, or that you aren't directly responsible for, and you accept that maybe there is a good other, an extra natural, but that you aren't necessarily responsible for figuring it out. You're just responsible for how you live your life. So they say if it exists and I'm obligated to do anything, it's to just live authentically rather than to live almost academically trying to figure it out and follow its rules.
Yeah.
And I get that's a mischaracterization of faith.
Yeah.
But I think that's a valid way of looking at it. If in like the illustration of the person who grows up without it, you don't see a reason to believe that more than to believe in a religion based on an alien planet colony, right? It's like, so why the Miracle Man? Like that, I have no inherent reason to believe that one. So you might actually see it as there's more possibilities than even just religion, and hope for a good ending.
When does Starbucks close?
I don't know. This is a weird week. Usually it's 10:30, but you may need to look up. What was I gonna say? What's funny though is that everyone still has, even if you don't believe in a religion, you still have moral law. So that's interesting that even without a religion that has a specific, this is how it should be go about, like Ten Commandments, or obviously I'm not the Quran that has a certain thing that set to follow, and then even in Hinduism there's what is it?
Moral precepts.
Yeah, moral precepts, and the fact of like you will work your way up to enlightenment through reincarnation and the caste system, I think.
Well, the caste system is more of a social construct.
Well, yeah, but the reason the caste system is that you will move up
where you'll end up
karma,
in reincarnation.
Yeah.
Connor, do you need someone to get you coffee? Do you want to?
We can, like, you can leave, grab coffee,
and
come back.
Just have them bring it.
I'll have someone bring it to you.
How?
Ask someone to bring you coffee. Connor, you're powerful. You're well loved.
I don't have people just to go get me coffee.
Dude, you keep
start
going
live
to Liberty.
streaming and
Go on
ask
to
someone to
Liberty
bring
Way.
you coffee, and then they can join us on the podcast.
Yeah, just go to Liberty. Do you not know? Wait, do you not know the power you have?
I'm not kidding. Do it. You'll have coffee within 10 minutes.
Yeah, just say like, this is the room. Oh God, how many people would show up?
No. Only the first one gets to come in. The rest can claw at the door like zombies.
All right, well, let's pitch this idea. Let's
Yeah,
put
go
on the
ahead.
story and pitch it.
I went live once and I was
I don't
rapping.
even know if I could do it. You were rapping? Yeah, that would not be my choice. I guess I didn't say I would actually read these.
Oh, so
Yeah,
this
no,
is-
I did say we'd read the questions.
Has anybody said any in?
Yeah, there's been 2.
Oh,
You can read these 2. They're right in the middle.
Hot right now.
No, not that one. It's not a question.
Sometimes my jeans fly. Sometimes my jean fly lays flat, but other times it sticks up like a tent. Why is that?
Oh man,
You need to lubricate.
I'm
your
gonna-
jean fly.
I'm gonna quote one of my personal heroes, Ignacio Libre, who once said, "Sometimes when you are a man, you have to wear stretchy pants." What I would advise, my friend, is in your case of tenting, what's going on here is that the denim of your jeans has slightly shrunk while the zipper has remained intact. Unless it's more of a biological tenting situation, in which case I recommend compression shorts, which have restrained the beast in most occasions.
Restrained the
For myself. Andrew asks, "Are you going to watch my documentary on Wednesday?" Abso-fruitly. I watched the trailer. This documentary was brought up on our episode with LU Crushes.
Really?
They mentioned that somebody was making a doc on the Banana Vandal, and I'm a huge documentary
Oh, he
fan.
made it?
He made it. He said, I assume that's what he's talking about. Yeah. Most definitely, I'll watch the documentary on Wednesday.
What was he gonna say? Oh yeah, if you need better, just buy better
can do it
pants.
anytime.
Mott and
Hey,
Bow.
what if we could take questions from them?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, go for
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Podcast.
Go for it.
Let's
bud.
do it.
And I'll be like, if you want to come up here, you have to bring coffee.
Right.
Please bring
Do it
coffee.
now, because we've got 50 more minutes, and that's probably about how long Starbucks has.
How many people know you now? Like, does everyone still recognize you're the guy?
You want to hear a story? A funny story?
Yeah.
Yesterday, I was walking back from the Rot with a friend, and there was a group of senior girls doing their photos in their like graduation gowns, and a couple of them had like platinum blonde curly hair, and I was like, dude, that's like my weakness, platinum blonde curly hair.
Really?
I love that. One of my weaknesses. And so then we were just joking about it like to ourselves. We passed them, okay, and then all of a sudden we hear, "Hey!" And one of the girls was yelling at. She's like, "You're the Liberty Way guy, aren't you?" And I'm like, "What's up?" And they're like, "Come get a photo with us." And they're like,
Did you get in their graduation
Yeah.
photos?
Oh!
and they're like one of them was like, "You're my campus crush," and like, I can't believe I'm getting a photo with you.
That's
Like,
amazing.
bro. I was dead. It was just so funny.
Did you get those digits?
No.
I
She's a
don't-
senior. It wouldn't work out.
Hello.
Oh, are we live now?
We
Yeah,
are
we are.
live.
Did you already ask for something?
No, we're waiting for people to join.
I've never done Instagram
Hello,
Live before.
TJ Allen join. Hello, Benjamin.
You can
Hello, Luke. Hello, Drew. Hello, Abigail.
Wait for people to show up.
Hello, Laney.
You just say hello.
Hello, LU Dank News. Welcome.
Like
we
that.
love you guys.
No,
Zach
they have to. It
Youngdale.
goes
Hey,
live and
Zach.
people
How you
come
doing?
flooding in
I know,
because
I
they
know.
Just waiting for the questions to roll in now.
Oh, hey, I'll hit you guys with some
Wait,
questions.
okay, here. How do you handle the fame? Wait.
This is for Connor.
This is
Yeah.
This is McKenna. This is Kenna. Okay. How do you handle the fame now that I'm famous? I don't know what to do. She doesn't know how to handle fame. You just gotta stay humble.
Don't forget where you came from.
Yeah.
Go review the things you've done in the past that are absolutely cringeworthy, and that'll keep you up at night, and you'll remember that you're just one of us.
Questions for everybody. Podcast, Connor,
Jordan,
personal life.
would you rather find an entire body or just a body part?
I think I'd rather find the entire body because then I'd have too much anxiety if it was just a part. It seems
What do
like-
you think of the rival meme accounts from Jake McMillan? I think it's good. There's competition. It's like basic economics. Like you need competition to survive. Like it's kind of like Batman and Joker. I always say it's like would one exist without the other? Probably not.
It's meme capitalism.
Yeah, it's capitalism.
Memealism.
It's
Well, I
meme
mean-
capitalism. I think it's funny though how like so many meme accounts have started. Like so many meme accounts, and they just post all the same thing, and it's like, come on, be original.
It's like the
Well-
Fox News networks.
But then again,
Memes aren't,
Memes aren't
exactly
really
a bastion
original,
of
are they?
originality.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Where's that coffee?
Jordan,
Yeah.
if you knew that someone was going to have a horrible death in a week and you could kill them and get in no trouble for it right now, would you do it?
Yeah.
Sorry, my questions aren't fun. You can,
You
keep,
just-
you can keep the fun show going up there if you want.
Wait, what did you say? You said that
Someone
if,
requested to join the live stream. Should we in?
depends on who they are. I probably not.
No.
It's
No.
Benja. Let's get Benja back.
Wait, so what did you ask if they were gonna die in a week?
Yeah, and you can give them a quick, painless
Oh,
death.
you date memes. They want to join the live stream.
Sure.
Ooh, yes. Yeah, I probably would.
If you've been on the podcast, you can join the live stream.
Should we keep this on the podcast? Because I feel like
I
this.
don't know. I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Oh, they declined. Oh,
I thought they asked.
they did ask.
They're trolling.
Yeah.
Wow! Don't pull my strings like that. My heart is already
Bunch
broken.
of
My
losers.
cousin Damian.
They lost the meme war.
Love you, Damian.
bitter.
Big shout. Everyone go follow Damian Allred. He's the G.
Let's talk about embarrassing moments in our lives that keep us awake at night.
Okay. Who wants to go first?
Someone else go first.
Connor.
Why? Okay.
Do you want me to narrow down the question?
Yeah, sure.
What's been your worst, like, asking out a girl or date experience?
I'm not gonna mention names.
I didn't want you to.
Or change them for the sake of the story.
There was one time last semester, the old Wheeler give you $20 to take someone on a date thing.
Right.
And I was like, hey, money. I like that, so I'll take that. So I took the $20, and I wasn't gonna just like not ask anyone on a date. So then, I was like, it was one night I was walking down the pathway next to Commons once, and I just started hearing barking out the window of the girls' wing of the Commons 1. And so I started barking back, as you do. And so then when someone was like, out the window, they're like, hey, you're cute. I'm like, okay, what? And like, hey, you want to go on a date? I yelled up at them. And they're like, yeah. And they're like, they wrote down their number on a piece of paper and threw it out the window. I didn't even see them. I didn't know what they looked like. This was blind situation.
Hoping for the best.
Yeah, so I got it, and we went on the date. I texted her, and we decided it was like we were gonna go to Panera at like 4:00 the next day, and we went. And I mean, it was fine. It was just kind of, it felt awkward to me. Like we were sitting there, and I was trying to like have a conversation, and I don't know. She kept like looking away, and like I was like, what's going on? Later, I come to find out that like there were 4 girls in that room that night when they were barking, and one was barking. One said I was cute. One agreed to the date, and all 3 of them forced the 4th one to go on the date. And those 3 who were also involved were at the Panera at the same time, videotaping us during our date.
Beware of packs, man.
And how did it end?
Maybe there's just a time limit.
Everyone left.
But we're still doing a thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
You can still talk to my people. Aren't they good enough
264
for you?
Viewers.
We maxed out. We maxed out the system.
Storage full. I don't know. But anyways, I'll finish the story.
Yeah, please.
So yeah, that's why I think she was like sitting there and she was like looking at her friends recording us talking. And I'm like, no wonder it was so awkward.
Yeah, that's no way to
Yeah.
interact with
And
somebody.
I mean,
That's horrible.
I wasn't even going in with like the idea of this going to be like a serious date.
Yeah, but how sincere and vulnerable do you think a person should be on a date? I mean, I feel like you do owe it to somebody
Well,
to give them, at the very least, your attention, but also to kind of at least be presenting your best self and considering, it's never just anything.
Yeah.
There's implications, man. That time counts and that effort counts.
yeah, and like, yeah, I don't know. I see dating as kind of like, there's a difference between like dating and then like in a relationship. Like if
Well, of
you're
course
dating
there is,
someone,
yeah.
like you go on a date with someone to see if there's potential for a relationship. I don't know. I think you're right. They're like, whenever you go on a date, like you're trying to like get to know each other to see if there's like some sort of connection there, like. So I don't know. I mean,
Well, this is like I was saying, like I don't I don't even feel confident enough that I have something to offer to another person to like ask them to spend their time with me outside of this, because this is like the thing I believe in the most. But just trying to like offer myself as sort of a product and be like, I can give you a great night. I'm not so sure that that's the truth, you know?
Yeah.
Like, so
I think there has to be, for some people, some sort of already interest there, mutual interest there already.
yeah, there's times it's not going to work. Don't waste somebody's time.
And so sometimes, like in that situation, I had never met this girl before, and so I was kind of going into it with kind of a very much less sort of standards. I was kind of just like, this is just gonna be fun. It's a funny story, like barking out the window, this whole thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, you could have at least like, it went for a weird spin whenever I found out there was like people monitoring.
That's
like,
definitely weird
us.
and disrespectful. People feel like it would be disrespectful or that it's like wrong to size somebody up, like that would be judgmental. I would, if somebody looks at me and they're like, some bad skin, some thinning hair, and those teeth aren't getting any whiter, I would rather them not go out, like, indulge me and pretend that, like, it's worth the experience if there's not potentially something more.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean.
Was that live?
No.
I don't care what you do.
I don't.
Go ahead, Connor.
I got rid of my Instagram.
Okay.
I don't really know what I was gonna say.
Do you guys have any deal breakers, like instant, just personality wise or otherwise? You're like, there's no chance this would go anywhere.
Nasally voices.
Oh, I'm a voice guy too, even though I don't have the greatest voice.
Like, I just realized that recently. Nasally voices. Yeah, so like this, kind of like this, yeah.
Like
that. Okay,
so
but that
the
goes
valley?
hand in hand.
Are you talking about the valley?
That goes hand in hand with personality traits.
There are,
That's
yeah,
not
there are.
just a voice.
I know there are, yeah,
That's
yeah,
a whole
and like
thing.
some it's a little bit, yeah.
The valley.
Yeah.
But
a
good
or
voice,
people
man.
do this a lot. We're gonna do this podcast.
What do you, ASMR?
No, but like, you know, people when they're podcasting, their mouth is real close to the microphone, and you can always hear them like just sort of in between. I don't know, something happens, saliva builds up in their mouth, and they just start between everything. Every time they open their mouth, it's like,
yeah, sticky voices are weird.
and if I notice it, I can't not notice it for the rest of the whole time.
It's glaring, and I feel like, hey, come on, man, drink some water. But that doesn't get me on the same visceral level as like Hucky Seas, or like there's certain things that even I might do if I'm not paying attention that I've like learned not to. I'll go ahead and say it. Dave Rubin, I cannot listen to the man. His mouth fills up with something that I can't hear. It's just too much. But let me make this more positive. If someone has a good voice, like that's big bonus points.
yeah.
I fall asleep to Cardi B's ASMR voice.
Let's not talk about ASMR. It's just weird to talk about, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everybody wants to talk about it these days. Like
What?
like everyone just figured it out or something.
I was on this train years ago. Okay.
Let's not play that game either. I'm just saying. It's like,
No, I think it's gotten really weird. I think there's a lot of people that are sexualizing it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I think like naturally, like okay, the first time I didn't know what it was, but in kindergarten there would be certain people that would like read a book to you.
you know the experience of it.
Yeah, and you get like a tingly sensation. Or you just get like this weird feeling.
I think people do it because they're like, oh, it adds to the sexual experience.
Probably.
I don't.
Like,
I feel like it's nothing like it. But the reason that you would think that they go hand in hand is because those are like uniquely two things that you can't explain why you enjoy it so much.
yeah. Yeah, but people either said they're really creepy and weird, or they're like, yeah, I like this. It's like, but like for me, it's usually they have like a soothing. They usually have a soothing voice, or there's like something really unique about it, and then you just like it just kind of gives you tingles. And then you have other people who are like, this is disgusting, because they're like they'll eat food on the microphone, and it's just like, and you're like crunching chips, and you're like, ugh, that's. And then you hear them swallow, and you're like, all right.
Apparently, you've been really checking out the scene.
No. I know that there
You
was
don't have to defend yourself. It's okay. You can be open with us.
But I'm attacking him.
He is attacking.
He should defend
Have you
himself.
heard Cardi B though?
Yeah, I've heard Cardi B.
No, Cardi B's a thing. She did an interview.
I don't want to even.
There was a beer company that did it. They as their
Well,
commercial.
that's very opportunistic of them, but not a fan. She's got a distinctive.
Bob Ross was basically the creator
All
of
right,
it.
why are we talking about this? From me saying I don't want to talk about this.
So deal
getting
breakers.
anxiety?
What are other deal
You got an
breakers?
issue?
Deal breakers.
Deal breakers.
I think it's the first time
If a
I've ever
girl
touched-
says that she dislikes The Office, that'd be a deal breaker.
Oh, so you like basic white girls?
I don't need a girl who talks about how much she likes it. But if she said she disliked it, that's.
I think that's probably a deal
problem.
breaker too, because it's a beautiful show.
If she's never watched it, that's okay.
The sheer genius of the show.
You know, I hated it. I never watched it until the winter break
Okay.
of this past year, and it was because I'm not a fan of TV shows.
Yeah.
I love movies, and there's like Stranger Things. I thought that was great.
So good.
Yes, it was fantastic.
I
And
can't wait for season 3.
I know. I don't know what was wrong with me. It was middle school me, so that kind of explains it in itself. But now I'm like, why did I not want to watch The Office?
Well, you wouldn't know how good it is till you watched it.
No, but
people
but like,
talk about things that are like supposed to be amazing all the freaking time, and then you lose the ability to make the distinction that The Office is actually on another level. It's not just a good show; it's another thing entirely.
Well, it was also like a hipster mentality where it was like everybody's watching
many
this.
people,
It must
yeah.
be. Also, it was because it was so. It was like it was cultural. Like, oh, you're cultured if you watch this. And I think I was just kind of, I don't know, middle school me was probably just really pissed off at everything. So I was like, I'm not gonna watch this. I'm gonna listen to my electronic music and EDM and.
Electronic.
That was me. I was.
Dubstep.
Yeah.
listen to
I didn't listen
It's
to
good.
it. I don't know. I only listened to certain dubstep. I wasn't.
All right.
Anyway,
keep
no.
this
Anyway, The Office is fantastic now. Watch that. But there's just so many memes with it.
Connor's trying different hairstyles,
Yes.
trying to come up with a new look.
Yeah, if I get out of the shower and I go like this, while it dries, it will go curly like you saw that.
I saw one day and I was like, Connor?
Yeah, that was me.
It was you.
Yeah.
I knew it was you, but I was like, I had to do a double take.
Yeah.
It was really cool. I was like, wow.
We are still podcasting, by the way.
Yeah, no.
Okay. This isn't very professional.
I don't know what you think professional is. I know that I will change the mantra.
This is good. Things to work on for next season, though. We got to think about a neutral listener who doesn't know
Us.
who any of the people speaking really are, who doesn't appreciate their background, but that there's value in what they're saying right then and there. I'm by no means a perfect podcaster, but I've definitely learned a few things just by doing it. You can learn things just from experience. You don't always need a teacher. That's a life lesson. I'm full of them.
Thank you, teacher.
There's more.
There's more hairstyles where that came
Connor.
from.
So, Connor,
Yes.
if I was to offer you a job at the Old Time Podcast Hour, would you accept?
I would accept.
Should I ask?
Yeah.
Connor,
Hello.
I do formally invite thee to become host. A host.
A host. Hostess?
Connor, would you care to be the third host of this esteemed podcast? I wish we hadn't reacted like that because I don't want to air it. But that was real. Every bit of that. Welcome to the podcast, Connor Menefee.
Yes.
Yay!
He's staying till death do us part.
All right. Is he the guy that I'll kill?
Do you
next?
believe in miracles?
Yes! Unbelievable! I was like, I forgot my line.
No, we've
No wonder.
we've been thinking about pitching it to you,
What now?
like Josh's tent. Never mind, for a while. And,
Are you sure you wanna? Do you wanna elaborate on that tent situation?
No.
all right, folks, you heard it here. Connor Menefee is going to be a host of this podcast. Some other things may change, but if that doesn't keep you listening, I don't know what will. We're gonna have some new guests, obviously, in the coming seasons. but this pod will never die. Did you fart?
No, it was.
No,
I
that's
thought
my
that
phone.
too. It
That's
was,
my phone. No, you just thought that I just let it go on live with you guys in the room. No,
Oh.
I wouldn't be surprised.
that's something that I am capable of.
We were going almost edit free for a solid 2 hours, and then we decided to go live, and this whole thing has devolved into chaos.
I mean, we're still, yeah, I know, but I mean, it gives people room to be like, oh, we can talk about funny things now, or just hear people laugh.
Well, I feel like I've set a precedent for something a little more serious.
Have you?
But it changes. Every episode is different.
Yeah.
So if you all want to catch up over the summer on the archives of the Old Time Podcast Hour, it'll be there. All 35 or so episodes. I'm still going to do one more. But, fellas, officially, I am going to be stepping down from my role as the number one host of the Old Time Podcast Hour. So, Jordan, you play trumpet? Add something. Harmonize. That was beautiful, guys. I couldn't have asked for a better send-off.
In the background, there are fireworks and
It's like-
explosions and eagles.
I can see it. I feel like it's going on behind me, and I'm like Gatsby saluting you with
On a yacht
With a
going out in the
champagne glass.
ocean
that
that's
one too.
flaming.
the
over
green
the
light
edge.
flashing in the background.
Born ceaselessly into the past. That's the last line of The Great Gatsby.
Yep. Daisy was a whore.
Is that how much? Oh, please.
Yes, I will go.
It's about what she represents. No, you're right. She even says it. She says the best thing that a girl can be in this world is,
An idiot.
no, basically.
Yeah, she's
And
like,
that's the world she lived in,
yeah,
right?
she's like, I hope my daughter.
It's not about how great she is, except in his eyes. How there's this thing from the past that he thinks is still right there in his grasp.
Yeah.
It's like that kind of represents the only thing worth living for. You know?
A fake.
But it's what he believes about her. And the point is that it will never be what he wants it to be.
Yeah, it'll never be reality. He's living in the past for something that'll never come back and is not real.
I mean, he's definitely tortured himself with it, and I'm saying I've done the same a lot. But I still think if you don't have something like that you can chase, like, what's the point?
Well, in other words, can't get out of depression. So,
It doesn't have to be depressing, though.
no, it doesn't have to be depressing. It can just be
Like,
yeah.
to
but
me,
that just means life
there's
is
so
not worth
few
living.
things when everything else like falls out. There's so few things that are like still worth chasing.
Fitzgerald can screw himself. He cheated on his wife. She hated him.
So I think what we learned here today was that we're living in a simulation.
Most likely. Or a solipsist kind of situation.
We'll live in it. Want to know what's even crazier? The fact that we're going to get to the point where we can, if we're already in a simulation, we can get into another one because of how well we're perfecting technology at this point.
Yeah, if
And
there's
look at-
any simulations, it's probably not just one. But there is a distinct possibility that for any given person, you are the only conscious being. That's almost equally possible to the other theories.
Yeah. So basically, life is meaningless as we know it. And that depression, you'll never be able to get out of it. Anxiety, that's a no-go. Might as well stay there. If you didn't listen to anything and you just skip to the end, that's what you will learn. That's what you will gain from this podcast.
There's no reward
Too long,
system.
didn't listen.
No.
Skipped to the end for the
Yeah.
synopsis. And now you're probably going to go.
Too long,
and
didn't read.
And maybe, is this real?
Are we real?
Maybe the podcast before this part, maybe because you skipped over it, it never existed. And maybe if you go back and listen, it'll be completely different.
Complete
ending.
silence.
You know what's trippy, guys? I very often mentally dissociate in not switching into another personality, but just feeling like I'm not there.
Yeah.
It happens almost every other episode. Not just spacing out, but literally I'm kind of just, I feel like I'm not there to even respond. I'm just, my head just kind of floated off, and it's so hard to get back in the reality. But that's not something anyone could relate to if they hadn't experienced it. And to this
breathing
point nobody
techniques?
has, so that was not worth
The
mentioning.
Wim Hof method.
Yeah. That could be one, or what you do.
That's the like super hyperventilating one, right?
Yeah, I've actually done it. I can hold my breath.
Oh, it's fun.
Have you done it?
Really?
It makes you feel tingly.
I can hold my breath.
Do you ever pass out trying to do it?
No.
You
You
should.
ever go full Alex Jones?
You need to
We
need
went
to,
full
like-
circle with that one.
Yeah, you need to, yeah, we did go.
Brought
full
it back.
circle. No, yeah. You need to be like lying down. But yeah, no, I could hold my breath for like 2 minutes, 2 minutes 30 seconds after. doing
Don't brag. That's crude.
it. I'm not bragging.
You know what
Vulgar.
else can help you with holding your breath? It's drinking coffee.
Really?
Yeah. Starbucks closes at 10.
All right, Connor. I know you've been jonesing to get out of
Yeah,
here.
you got 8 minutes.
So you got 8 minutes. We'll see you next season, buddy.
Thanks,
I'm
guys.
looking
Thanks for
forward
joining
to all
us.
of this.
I just respect people that like create something, that do something. To me, the coolest people in the world are the ones who just like they don't care what anyone's gonna think of their thing. They just do it. And like if you really analyze a lot of your goals, you'll find that so many of them are based on approval. Like even if it's not like social approval, it's like, hey, I want to land this job. I want things to work out like this, and it's contingent on other people. And like people that just do their thing, they're the best, man. So like I try to respect that and validate that, even if it's not always going to be the best entertainment or the best of whatever it is. It's like it's the seed of something that's the best.
What's up? It's Benjashik and Kaden Wilburn, and we're just hanging out, you know. And if you're a girl, then my Instagram is KadenW_. But if you're not a girl, my Instagram is benja.love.
I'm dead. Yeah, so maybe you'll get some of my 20 followers.
Yeah.
That'd be sick. That'd really boost your game.
All right, we're gonna go now.
Love you.
Love
Hey,
you guys.
love you.
Bye, listeners. Okay.
Well, that was fun.